Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Dana here. Today I'm going to be playing with one of the new texture fades from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. And then a couple other of the products that I'm going to be using is this texture fade. He did come out with a bigger size in this one, but I'm going to be using the smaller old one. And then I'm also going to be using the Emerald Cut labels and tag die set from Spellbinders. And then this Lavender Mountain Daisy die from Spellbinders. If you have these products, go grab them, play along, or shop your stash. If you have anything similar, definitely grab that. We're going to also be using some spray stains, some acrylic paint, some inks. We're going to get messy today. A full product list is available down in the description box below, and I do have affiliate links when available. If you choose to shop through those links, it does help support me and the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. When shopping through those links, you don't have to get the actual product that's linked. Just using the link and shopping and checking out after you've used that link, I still get credit for that. So that definitely helps. But anywho, let's get on to the making. To start off this card, you want to grab a piece of watercolor cardstock. Any watercolor cardstock that you have will work. This one is cut down to 5x7. I may or may not end up cutting it down in the end. We'll see. I haven't quite gotten to that stage yet. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to mist that with some water. And then I'm going to take my Distress spray stains in Frayed Burlap and Gathered Twigs. You don't have to shake these. I like to shake mine. I don't know if it's the altitude of where I'm at here in Colorado, but sometimes they do have a tendency to separate a little bit. So I will shake them up. And I'm just going to randomly mist them on the background. And just to make them wick and blend a little bit more, I'm going to spray it with more water here. When I'm doing backgrounds like this, I have a tendency to use a lot of water. You don't have to use this much water, but yeah, I have a tendency to probably use too much. And I'm just going to dry that off with my heat tool. Just kind of move it around so that there's not just a big puddle of ink. All the different lines and different textures will add to the finished look in the end. We're going to make this look like a piece of wood, a piece of weathered wood. Then I'm just going to kind of scooch this over. And while I'm drying that, I'm going to multitask here. And I'm just going to take another piece of watercolor cardstock and pick up this excess ink so that we don't waste it. And then this will be a background for some other project at some point, I'm sure. Or I'll die cut it out. And if your ink's drying on your glass mat, you can always mist it with a little bit more water. But like I said, I have a tendency to start out with quite a bit of water, so... And I'm drawing while I'm tapping it down because that creates all the little extra layers and kind of the marbled effect with these inks. If you don't have the sprays, you can always use the ink pads for this. You would just put the ink down on your work surface first, mist it with water, and then just tap it in to tap your paper into the ink like I'm doing here. Okay, I think that's probably about all I'm going to get up on that. Oh, there's some more ink here, so we'll grab that yumminess. I use the Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine for most of my die cutting. And to do the texture fades, the sandwich that I use, now your machine could be different, but I will generally use 5 of the little shims the platform base and then also the platform top. And what I do is I just sandwich the shims in between the base and the top. Get my machine out here. And then I'll put the paper in the embossing folder right on top, and then I run it through the machine like that. And I'm getting this ready because I'm going to ink the embossing folder with the Distress Archival ink in ground espresso. And I just want to make sure that it doesn't dry before I can get it run through. So you're going to want to take the background that you made, give the back of it just a mist of water, and I'm just going to do that off camera here. And then just set that aside. And I'm going to be inking the side of the folder that presses in or debosses into the paper. And then since this is a wood grain pattern, I'm just going to slide it along in the direction of the wood grain. This will just help ensure that I'm only hitting the high points on this side, which will be the low points on the paper. And I'm not ending up with ink where I don't really want it. And you don't need to push real hard. You just kind of slide an ink pad along the embossing folder. And you'll be able to see where the ink ends up because it'll be shiny where the embossing folder itself is matte, even though we're using a dark color. So I'm just going to line my paper up on this side to where it's straight-ish. Close my embossing folder. Put it in and run it through the machine. When I'm inking embossing folders, I do run it a little bit slower just to make sure that all, ooh, sorry for that noise, just to make sure all the ink gets transferred to the paper and is not left on the embossing folder. And that's what we have. A wonderful wood grain background, but we're not done with this yet. We're going to zhuzh it up a little bit. And then when I'm using archival ink, I will, on my embossing folders, I just clean them off with some rubbing alcohol. This is one of the continuous sprayers from Spellbinders. I've just got it filled with, I think it's 70% rubbing alcohol, but you can use 90 or whatever you have. Then I just grab an old dried out baby wipe and give it a wipe down. And then wipe it down with my clean towel. And we're good to go for next time. I want to make this background look like it's a weathered piece of old wood, so I am going to brayer on some paint. And the paint that I'm going to be using is weathered wood, distress paint. And whenever I'm using my brayer with paint, I like to roll it out on my gel plate. So I'm just going to add a bit of paint and then roll it out with my brayer. When you're brayering, you want to roll, lift, roll, lift, roll, lift. That way you're covering the entire brayer versus just going back and forth like this. You're only adding paint to part of the brayer. And then again, since this is a wood grain pattern, I'm just going to follow the wood grain to add the paint with my brayer. And I like to just do a little bit of at a time, just so I don't end up with big blobs of paint where I don't want it. There we go, I think that side's good, so I'm just going to add a bit more paint. And if you don't have the distress paint, you can use any type of acrylic paint that you have. just a bit more to this side since I've still got a little wet paint here. And then I don't clean off my gel plate. I'll just end up pulling a print off of this once I get a couple layers of random paints down, and I'll see what I end up with. And then look at that. Isn't that so cool? Just looks like a piece of weathered old wood. So I'm just going to set that aside so that it can dry. Off camera, I created this frame that will be part of the embellishments on the card. And what I did is I cut it out using the Emerald Cut Labels tag die set from Spellbinders. I cut it out 3 times from some watercolor cardstock, and then I ran it through, I just ran 1 layer through this embossing folder. This is the Foundry embossing folder. This is the older one, so it's the regulation size, I guess you would say. But you could always use the small one or the big one if you have it. And then I adhered all three of the layers together, and then I created the rusty effect on it. I do have a video on how to do this, and I'll have that linked down below. And I want to create some blue flowers for the card, so I just used a piece of mixed media paper. This is the Canson mixed media paper, I believe. And then for the colorant, I just used this Top Hat Teal Magical from Lindys. They also have this in spray if you prefer to use a spray. And I'm just going to die cut that out using the Lavender Mountain Daisy die set. Off camera, I did all of my die cutting. And the leaves, I just die cut them out of a piece of cardstock that I had gel printed with peeled paint, Distress Oxide ink, and I will have the video on how to do that linked below as well. So just grab my little shaping kit here, and I'm going to add some shape to these flowers. I'm just going to do it my way. There is a way to do it that the dies were actually designed for to mimic the flowers. And that video is available on Spellbinders if you're interested in that. But I'm just going to add a little bit of shape to them. Okay, so I'm just going to take, I believe this is the leaf shaping tool, but I'm just going to take that, and I'm literally just going to draw down the center-ish of each petal. And that's it. Then you'll just glue 2 of them together, and that's your flower. And then for the leaves, I'm going to do basically the same thing. There is an embossed line from the die itself on the leaves, so I'll try and follow that somewhat. But again, I'm just adding just a little bit of something to the leaves here. So I'm going to get all those done and glued together, and I'll come back. Okay, so I got the flowers all glued together, and then I just glued my wood panel to a pre-made 5x7 card base. And I'm just going to glue the frame on with some Barely Arts glue. I'm going to do that right about in the center. Grab my ruler to make sure it's somewhat straight. Hey, I didn't do too bad. Now I'm thinking I should just added something in there because it kind of gets lost. Let me see, can I get this up? Oh, I can still get it up. Okay, so I am going to pull out one of my favorite tricks for frames. This is just a used dryer sheet. I love to put this inside of frames. It just gives everything such a cool texture. And to glue that on, I like to use the Distress Collage Medium. So I'm just going to add a good amount to the back here. And then I'm going to set that down on my work surface. And I'm just going to lightly put the dryer sheet. There it is. Okay. So I just lightly put the dryer sheet on there. And to kind of stretch it out and make sure that it's flat, I'll put this big acrylic block right on top of it. And I just kind of stretch it out, push it down, and then I'm going to let that completely dry. Okay, so the dryer sheet is all dry, and I went ahead and cut around the edge on the back and then just glued that onto the base. And now I'm going to glue on the flowers. To be honest, this is a couple of days later, so I don't know what I've told you, so if I repeat myself, I apologize. But I'm just going to glue down the flowers kind of in the corner here. And then I'll go in and add the leaves. And I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do for the centers yet. I think I might do some little black half-back pearls I think would be nice. I'm just gluing these down with my Barely Arts liquid glue. And I'm just kind of smushing them in next to each other. And I'm just going to go ahead and add the leaves in. Now the leaves, I did cut out the recommended amount based on the way the die was designed. I don't know if I'll actually use that many, but I have them if I decide to use them. I'm just kind of randomly just sticking them in here, putting a little glue on the back and popping it in there where I think it might look good. There's really no rhyme or reason to this. I did end up using all of the leaves, so you can see all those there, see what it would look like. And I just kind of work in a circle. Got little bits of paper here. Little die cut pieces. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I just kind of work around in the circle and just pop them in where I think it might look good. And then for the sentiments, I'm going to be using Hello Beautiful from this set. This is the Wonderful Script Set Sentiments. And I just die cut the top part out of some black cardstock and then the base in some vellum. And I think I'm just going to put it on there, something like that. We'll see. But I'm going to start with the Beautiful since that's the biggest part. And then I'll just kind of put the Hello where I think it'll look good. And then I'm going to try my best to just kind of put the glue behind the black so that you can't see it through the vellum, but if it's not perfect, I'm really not that worried about it. Okay, so for this, let me rearrange my tweezers a little bit here. Okay, so I think I want it basically here. And if it hangs off the card a little bit, I'm okay with that. Shift that down a little bit. Okay. There we go, something like that. And it'll pop up a little bit where it's on that dryer sheet, and I'm totally fine with that. If you wanted, you could really glue it down, but for my cards, I really don't mind when things are kind of popped up in different places. I just feel like it gives it more visual interest. And then the hello, I'm just going to pop it right there. And then again, this one will kind of look like it's just floating because it's just adhered to that dryer sheet. And I think I'm not going to do anything in the center. So that finishes off today's card. Thank you so much for joining me today. A list of supplies that I've used here with affiliate links will be down below in the description box. If you do choose to shop through those affiliate links, I do get a small kickback. You don't have to purchase the items that are actually listed. You can purchase anything just with using those affiliate links. I still get credit for it, and I do greatly appreciate that. As always, please take some time to pamper your inner goddess, and I will see you in the next one.